It's a pair of 0-1 teams at Lambeau Field. It's a Locked On Packers, Locked On Colts crossover Thursday. Let's do it.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers and Locked On Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. I'm with Jake Arthur from Locked On Colts. We are here to preview Week 2, a pair of 0-1 teams. As I said, two teams that probably feel like they could have and maybe should have won their Week 1 games against teams that also expect to factor into the playoff race. Jake, let's dive in there. What is the vibe? What are the vibes coming out of Week 1 for the Colts, where Anthony Richardson makes 3 of the craziest throws you've ever seen in your entire life, and they just come up just short at the end?
Yeah, it's a real mixed bag right now, because the only thing that matters is how Anthony does, and he passed the test. Like, he's part of the thing that looks like the arrow is going up.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think I said at least 2 or 3 times on shows leading into last week, the thing I'm most confident in is the run game. And then outside of Anthony is 3 yards per carry.
Yeah.
And Houston totally loaded up to stop the Colts run, but there's only so much you can do when you have a quarterback like that. The defense, woof. The pass rush was really good. They did what they needed to keep CJ Stroud rattled and limit him to like only the special throws that had to be made when they needed to be made. He didn't like kill them throughout the game. But the defense made Joe Mixon look like vintage Joe Mixon. Like, as a team, they ran for over 200 yards, which was the most the Colts have given up since like 2022. Mixon had the most yards as an individual against the Colts since Derrick Henry back in like 2020.
AFC Offensive Player of the Week.
Yeah, and like everybody was healthy. So it's like, what are we doing? Gus Bradley basically explained that they were prepared to let Houston run, but it kind of got out of hand in the fourth quarter, essentially. They used all their resources to try and disrupt CJ Stroud as much as possible, but the run defense became a major victim that they didn't intend to get that bad in the process.
So that's and I don't want to preempt too much of the matchup stuff that we're going to get to a little bit later, but Gus Bradley talked about, feeling like, okay, they might have been a little too worried about the CJ Stroud piece of this, got a little outside of their character, because Gus Bradley is a single high cover 3, like, dogmatist when it comes to some of this stuff. Like, that's just, he's going to do what he does. And they're very well schooled at it. Like, it doesn't kind of matter that the talent at corner is not elite level. Like, it's not Sauce Gardner and Patrick Surtain out there. And yet they're able to make this all work because Gus Bradley is such a good teacher when it comes to this stuff. But I do wonder, okay, quarters on early down is something they've leaned into a little bit more. That's the college football, that's the answer for the quarterback run game. But they did it with CJ Stroud, presumably to stop the big plays. Now Malik Willis, we think, is going to play quarterback, right? This is the big story in Green Bay right now, is who's going to be the quarterback. Matt LaFleur leaving the door open. So if they're going to lean into more of that run game, is Gus Bradley going to go, well, actually what we need to do is load up to stop the run because we're going to make Malik Willis pass? Or, hey, this is actually the answer for the quarterback runs, and we want to make sure we have an answer for that. Like, where do you lean on all of that?
That is really tough, because I think they're preparing for Malik Willis. I mean, Gus Bradley said as much. I was surprised. But I think, in their mind, they're like, they can say all they want that Jordan Love could play, but it's Malik Willis. I mean, Josh Jacobs is better than Joe Mixon. Like, they have got to use all their resources to stop the run in this one and make Malik Willis beat them. I think they can live with that. That was their philosophy last week, was as long as we take care of CJ Stroud, we can live with giving up stuff in the run game. As long as the big thing last week too was that led into time of possession being cut in half. So they don't want Green Bay to have 40 minutes while they have 20. and be so incredibly reliant on Anthony Richardson's explosive plays to
that is the big plays and the inefficiency outside the big plays, right? Like they didn't do much outside of those big plays. And so when that happens, you're not going to hold the ball very much.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they needed those badly. I mean, that played into part of it was those quick drives on the huge plays, but Houston really controlled the ball. They had it like the entire third quarter, essentially.
Yeah.
So I think that's what the Colts have to do, no matter what, is just make sure that the Packers run game doesn't kill them, because it's so obvious. It's a big neon sign. And I mean, do what you can against Malik Willis. Like, what the Colts secondary is perhaps going to trot out this Sunday is the equivalent to what Green Bay's quarterback situation is.
Mm-hmm.
They're really banged up in the secondary right now. So, like, let's just attack what we know is the obvious strength here.
Well, and part of that is, okay, if you need to stop the run, if you need to rush the passer, which we expect the Colts to be able to do. I thought DeForest Buckner on Sunday was outstanding. This pass rush overall was outstanding. And then you see the injury report on Wednesday and you go, okay, DeForest Buckner did not practice. He's got a back injury. Kwity Paye did not practice. He's got the dreaded soft tissue injury, which makes you, especially as, you know, Kwity he's a twitched up pass rusher. Like you need those soft tissue muscles. I just wrote a great piece. Okay. I thought it was great for the Leap about this, that you don't have to be a Packers fan to appreciate about the sports science and getting into some of this soft tissue stuff. But that stuff is scary, man. If those two guys don't go and the cornerback situations like that's tough if you're Indianapolis.
And that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg, because Juju Brents, their top outside corner,
on IR,
season-ending IR knee injury. Julian Blackman, who is their only really reliable safety, shoulder injury, didn't practice today either, or Wednesday. And his season ended last year with the shoulder injury. We don't know yet if it's the same one, because media availability was before practice and before the injury report. But yeah, I mean, two of their three most important defensive backs are banged up. Kwity Paye is not only an improving pass rusher, but he's one of the better run defending ends in the NFL. And of course, DeForest Buckner is invaluable. I mean, if he's not on the field, even when he's healthy and he's got to take a break, opponents smell blood in the water and they attack. And so if it's Taven Bryan and Grover Stewart starting on Sunday, that's a lot less attractive. And then maybe you have to essentially go with two nose tackles and Raekwon Davis and Grover Stewart. It's not ideal no matter how you look at it. Some of their most important defensive players are not out there to start the week.
Quickly here, Jake, the Packers also had a defensive performance that yielded a conference player of the week. Saquon Barkley was the conference player of the week in the NFC on offense. So a pair of teams that will not be able to stop the run. Just from the Colts side here for a second, why do you think they were not able to get Jonathan Taylor going, who is one of the best, most explosive and dynamic running backs in the league?
That one's tough, but I think you have to start with the offensive line. Houston's defensive line just, I don't know. They just really showed up for the challenge. They got pushback. I mean, the Colts did really not do a good job of creating opportunities for Taylor. Now, there were a couple spaces where Taylor could have, cut inside or out and probably gained more yardage. I personally feel like he tends to start slow anyways and then gets rolling really well, about a third of the season through.
In the game, too, like he'll break off that 60-yarder in the middle of the third quarter after he's gotten 15 carries, and he's like got 15 carries for 40 yards, and you're like, okay, when is he going to do it? And then all of a sudden, bang.
Right. And I mean, he had a great summer. He looked great in training camp. I don't imagine he's going to have a couple games in a row averaging 3 yards per carry, but the offensive line has got to show up and do some things too. But it's not like Green Bay has a bad line. Like, it's going to be a tough matchup with, Kenny Clark, Van Ness. There's some good guys over there. And the Colts coaches have already been talking about it for the past couple of days.
Let's dig into some of those matchups here. And by the way, the Packers hope that he does average 3 yards a carry, at least for one more game here. We'll talk about these matchups coming up on a Locked On Packers, Locked On Colts crossover. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at DoorDash. Of course, DoorDash. It is the on-demand delivery platform for your food. If you want food on game day, if you want food on just a random weeknight, DoorDash is the place. DoorDash is the app that I use. Me and my wife, if we don't feel like dealing with dinner, and I like to cook, we call DoorDash because they've got our favorite places on the app. They make it easy. And of course, it's delicious food delivered right to my door. Why would I not want that? Of course, your game plan is going to be trying to put yourself in a position to succeed, to win the game. DoorDash puts you in that kind of position. Use the promo code LOCKEDONFALL24. Locked Fall 24 for 50% off, up to a $10 value when you spend $15 on that first order. It's a limited time offer and terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. Must be 21 to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol only available in select markets. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at Hims. When we leave the house, it's phone, wallet, keys. How's my hair look? Right, guys? But if you're experiencing hair loss, you may not be so confident when you step out the door. It's time to get that confidence back and restore your hair with Hims. It's something I've been thinking about. I got a haircut recently, and I was like, is this looking a little thinner than it used to? Is the hairline a little further back than it used to be? I'm looking into trying to figure out how I can adjust to getting a little bit older, a little more gray on the sides than there used to be. Hims can help. Hims provide access to a range of hair loss treatments that work all from the comfort of your couch. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/LockedOnNFL. That's HIMS.com/LockedOnNFL for your personalized hair loss treatment options. hims.com/LockedOnNFL. Results vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details. And of course, important safety information. We're back here, Locked On Packers, Locked On Colts, a crossover Thursday. And go check out our friends over at Locked On NFL, the madman Tyler Rowland. Colts fans know Tyler Rowland from Locked On Titans, of course, and he is a madman. They also know our pal, the barber, Tony Wiggins. So go check out the new Locked On NFL. It's twice a day. We just had, Jake, Tyler on the show this week because talking Malik Willis.
Yeah.
And so he knows Malik Willis much better than I do or you do. And so that's the beauty of the Locked On Podcast Network is I can just call up Ty and we can chop it up talking about Malik Willis. So here's let me throw this at you and you tell me what you think, okay? Mm-hmm. Tyler said this. If you're going to start Malik Willis, it would be great to get him in an offense that has a support structure that he didn't really have in Tennessee. And also, it would be great if you could start him against the team he's prepared against already, a team like the Indianapolis Colts. And I'll add a team that in Gus Bradley is just always themselves. Gus Bradley is going to do what Gus Bradley does. They are a static shell team for the most part. They do some disguise, they do some blitz, but it's all kind of league average stuff in terms of the rates at which they do it. They're not a chaos defense. So if you're going to start Malik Willis in a game, this is kind of a pretty good game to do it, especially coming off a game where they could not stop the run and the Packers, second in the league in EPA per rush in week 1. What do you think?
I'd love to tell you that the Colts don't make every young or new quarterback look like they're Brett Favre, but they kind of do. I mean, there's too much of a sample size there to say they're going to feast against young quarterbacks. This probably is a good matchup for a Malik Willis. If his offensive line is doing their job and getting some push on the defensive line, then he is going to be able to use his mobility a little bit as well. Because it wasn't a super impressive showing from Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed last week. And normally I would say as long as, Grover Stewart is getting some push up front and occupying some blocks, that allows those two guys to flow around, but they were just getting occupied as well. So, the linebackers have not really shown that they're playing super strong right now. That could be a byproduct of, the preseason, and historically offensive line play and tackling is pretty porous to start the year the last few years.
It's the 4th preseason game in week 1. We know that.
Yeah. It's probably a good matchup for Malik Willis. I'm not going to lie to you. Especially, I mentioned the secondary. I can't. The Colts pass rush is the only thing I really think could give him problems. Is if they're really clicking. I mean, if there's no Kwity Paye, then that opens more opportunity for Latu, obviously, who.
But no DeForest Buckner. There is no replacement. Like there is no first round pick waiting in the wings to go be DeForest Buckner.
That one's tough. I will say that one's definitely tough because rushing next to Buckner has been huge for Latu as well. Like only small sample sizes because you're obviously not going to pour a ton of snaps into guys in the preseason, but he's received great grades in every opportunity that he has received. But obviously Buckner not being there would be a big problem because Raekwon Davis isn't going to get that type of push. Taven Bryan is not. Adetomiwa Adebawore is not. But yeah, I mean, Tyquan Lewis, we're not going to say Kwity Paye, Dayo Adangbo, Latu. These are all guys who did have some success last week as well, though. But
great names on that defensive front in Indy. Wow.
Oh yeah, it's a challenge. Like before the draft every year, we just need to do our vocal exercises. Tip of the tongue, the teeth, the lips. That we always got to do that. Yeah. But no, the Colts defense is going to be totally reliant on the pass rush.
Well, and this was a Packers team against the Philadelphia Eagles that handled that pass rush with aplomb most of the game, even with some bad footing concerns. I mean, Jordan Morgan is a rookie who's in there starting at right guard, and you got to think if DeForest Buckner can go, that's going to be a place where they try and take advantage, right? Like if you have DeForest Buckner against a rookie, that's the matchup that you want to try and exploit. But Jordan Morgan held his own against a pretty good interior for the Philadelphia Eagles. So Zach Tom played at an all-pro level against Josh Sweat, against whoever they put out there at defensive end for the Philadelphia Eagles on the edge. So this is an interesting matchup in that regard. And I think injuries are going to end up playing a pretty huge factor here. Let me flip this for you because I have been, since the pre-draft, kind of obsessed with Anthony Richardson. I think the physical ability is just outrageous. And you see it in a game where on 16 throws, he goes 6 of 16 for, I believe, 41 yards. Maybe it's 42 yards. It's something like that. And then on 3 throws, he's got 170 yards and they're all in the air. With the Doolin one, there's some run after catch, but it's still like this ridiculous throw in the air. I don't know what to make of him right now. I don't understand it. But the only reason they were in that game is because he made 3 throws that maybe only Anthony Richardson can make. And I don't know how to give a better compliment to a player than that. So my perspective from the Packers side is going, okay, if you can instead of 3 50+ yard plays, if you can make it 2, and he's going to go 6 for 16 in the rest of that, and maybe he will, maybe he won't, right? But if you can do that, that's the key to the game to me.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be so peaks and valleys-ish once Josh Downs gets back. I mean, Michael Pittman Jr. is normally for
we don't know what his status is, right? Missed week 1 with an ankle injury, practiced in a limited fashion on Wednesday. So we're still waiting on that one.
Personally, like if gun to my head, I think it'll be one more week for him because he doesn't, talking to him in the locker room, he doesn't sound super gung-ho. Like when guys are itching to get back, like you can kind of tell, and he's still kind of waiting to like make sure he's confident in his cutting and everything. So I think he may still be a week away, but that is Richardson's his comfort blanket, basically. Michael Pittman Jr. has been that for the revolving door quarterbacks for him throughout his career. Yeah. And him and Richardson do still have a very strong rapport. But the guy who I think is going to smooth out Anthony's completion percentage a little bit and help him with those layups and move the chains a little bit is Josh Downs. Because of course, Michael Pittman Jr. gets a lot of attention from defenses as well. So if Downs isn't in there yet,
Mitchell might be the next guy too, because man, he had a couple opportunities on Sunday, brother. Like there were a couple throws where I know Anthony Richardson wants those back because there were three where it's a touchdown if Richardson can put it on him.
Yeah, I tell you, those two are really close to being something crazy because like Mitchell.
Oh, week 3, Jake, week 3, please. Can we do it in week 3?
With Chicago, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
They're getting close though, man. And I think part of it is, AD is kind of running into some things he's not expecting to see. And then he becomes open. And then so Anthony is quickly trying to readjust, and they're just not, they don't have the lizard brain together yet. But like he has it with like Pittman and Downs. But I mean, they're both essentially rookies. Hopefully they get there soon, because God, you can see the potential. Like Mitchell was burning dudes left and right. And they, like, with what Anthony already did in that game without those completions to Mitchell, like that, like there's a lot of potential there.
And that's something that I have my eye on, because, Jair Alexander against the Eagles could have easily had 2 interceptions, had an opportunity late in the game where I frankly thought should have been OPI. They never call it in a situation like that where the DB runs the route for the receiver and the receiver is over the back of the DB, but he should have had the interception if not for the OPI. But he is someone who can be a little jumpy on those underneath routes. And it was 2 double. He got Derek Stingley, who's a really good cornerback, twice on double moves where he's out the gate. And they're going to try it on Ja, and he is going to have to be disciplined in those circumstances, because it was a double move that Anthony Brown got him on the touchdown. AJ Brown. It's AJ Brown. Like it's hard for me to be mad at Jair Alexander for that. But we just saw AD Mitchell do it to Derek Stingley. So
and Alec Pierce. Pierce burned Stingley on the big time.
Alec Pierce is another player who, if you're gonna just like, let's go make a 50-50 ball, it doesn't seem like it's 50-50 when he's up there. Former volleyball player, the 40-inch vertical jump, like he is a physical marvel, someone that a lot of Packer fans were very interested in back in the 2022 draft. So it's the big plays. And I feel like I'm doing a lot of the same conversations with you that I had with Louis about limiting big plays, limiting the quarterback run game. It's a very similar game plan. It's no coincidence. It's Shane Steichen. It's the former Eagles guy doing the Eagles thing in Indianapolis. So in some ways, I do think the Packers are going to have a better feel for this because they've seen it already. We will get to the keys here. The keys to who is going to win the game. The Colts, 3.5-point favorites at Lambeau Field. Don't agree with the line, but our friends at FanDuel have said it. We will talk more about all of that and who we think is going to win next on a Locked On Packers, Locked On Colts crossover. Today's Crossover Thursday, sponsored by our friends at FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. As I mentioned, it is Colts 3.5-point favorites on the road at Lambeau Field. Got that low total too, 40-41 right now. I like the over on this. Go make your bet and get your Sunday ticket. And if that's not enough, be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use it for FanDuel's double your winnings for all of Sunday, September 15th. That's this Sunday. Pre-game moneyline bets. Profit Boost will be live starting Thursday. So that's today. View your account page now to learn more about the boost. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. And just a reminder, Crossover Thursdays, as always, brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. PrizePicks, go check it out right now. America's #1 daily fantasy platform. Jake, we're here on a Crossover Thursday, Locked On Packers, Locked On Colts. We don't get to do this very often, which is, kind of a bummer. I like watching the Colts. I think this is a cool team. When it comes down to it, like I said, I'm scared of Anthony Richardson, very much so. What is the key? Like the Colts will win if.
So offensively, I think they did enough last week to win it. It was just like it was very erratic. But I will say offensively, still, I think the offensive line kind of needs to get it together. It's very uncharacteristic for them to not be able to get much push. Over the last year and a half, 2 years, they've really reestablished themselves as one of the better O-lines in the league. So I've got to have faith that is, it's the same guys. So I've got to assume that they're still capable of at least run blocking very well, which should unlock Jonathan Taylor a little more and make it so they're not so dependent on Anthony to have those kind of magical plays. So they can establish the run a little bit, which if week 1 for Green Bay is any indicator, it could happen. I like that. Defensively, they've got to keep up the pass rush because they did enough to keep CJ Stroud on the move and not quite comfortable last week. So do that against Malik Willis, but prove Chris Ballard right in the secondary, I guess, because
I like that.
This injury with Juju Brents,
it's tough. He was someone I really liked coming out of college too, and he's such a great fit for what they want to do.
Well, it's really unfortunate because everyone was screaming about them needing to add more help in the secondary all offseason, and they stood pat and were like, no, we like the young guys we've got. And it's like, but Juju is one of your 3 most important DBs, and the guy has not been 100% healthy at any point since you drafted him, even in the offseason.
Yeah,
always recovering from something. And now you're kind of laying in the bed you've made. He's out for the year. So they're starting corners. Jalen Jones on the outside, 7th rounder last year. They lucked into him being capable of starting. Again, you draft a guy in the 7th round, you don't think he's going to be your starter right there.
No.
On the other side, we don't know. It could be Dallas Flowers, who was a healthy scratch last week, or Samuel Womack, who they got off waivers at the end of the preseason from the 49ers, who we thought was a nickel, but is actually going to be playing outside. And then Kenny Moore in the nickel. Maybe you move Kenny to the outside for more reliability there. But it's like, look at what is happening.
But can you do that? Kenny Moore's one of the best slot defenders in the league. I feel like you're making 2 places worse if you do that.
Yeah, it's I don't know. And then behind them, if Julian Blackmon doesn't
Jaden Reed,
play,
Jaden Reed was awesome last year. You got to have Kenny Moore, at least give him some shot against Jaden Reed.
It's just crazy how everyone was like, you better be careful with this. And then here we are. It's not even the second game is here yet, and something big has gone wrong. So, make Chris Ballard look good here with this, because right now the vibes are not great in the secondary.
Okay, how about this for the Packers in terms of keys? Don't lose the game on offense. I feel like that's it. Just don't lose the game on offense, because if Malik Willis is trying to do too much and throwing a lot of interceptions, and by the way, when he was starting, it wasn't like he was reckless with the ball. He's just he was an inaccurate thrower, and he was an inaccurate thrower in college, a high variance thrower, because he has the horsepower, a lot like Anthony Richardson, who is also a little bit of an inconsistent thrower, because they have the horsepower to make every throw. Just don't throw it to the wrong color jersey is the mandate here, because I do think the running game is going to be able to get some traction. I think Matt LaFleur can scheme up enough looks here to give them an opportunity at some big plays, play action. That was something that I think you're going to see a lot of play action, deep overs, big posts, those kinds of things. I bet they'll run leak maybe once a half. They're going to have specials, and they're going to because this is a crucial game for the Packers without Jordan Love. If you're the Colts, yes, you want to be a playoff team, but really, you mentioned it. It's more about the Anthony Richardson of it all. Does Anthony Richardson looks like your guy, and do you compete for a playoff spot? The Packers are trying to go win a Super Bowl, Jake. Yeah. They can't go 0-1. And so there was this great stat. Teams that lose in week 1 and are underdogs in week 2 cover the spread 57% of the time since 2003, because they're desperate teams. Now, both of these teams are 0-1, but one team is an underdog and one team isn't. And so I feel like from a Packers perspective, I like them covering the 3.5. I'm going to pick them to win this game, just because I do think there is an urgency gap here. I think the Packers feel that this game is going to be more important for them. Matt LaFleur is going to bring out the tricks. There's going to be the specials. I think they're going to have a little bit more intensity on defense after the awful footing in Brazil. I think the defense is going to play better. It'll be a close game. I mean, I think this is sort of like one of those 24-20 kind of games, 24-21. I think that's right in that range. It will be a game that it's going to have both fan bases pulling their hair out. I have no doubt about that. I said that the same thing in the Eagles game. I think that's true in this one. So that's where I've landed here.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. Now, I do think the ingredients are there. For some reason, this gives me the vibes of Colts Browns last year. Total barn burner between PJ Walker and Gardner Minshew.
Yeah.
Like 70 points scored almost. Like
Yeah, that would be fun.
This game has no business being that, but it could be. We don't know.
Yeah.
But I'll go on the reasonable side. I do have the Colts winning, I think 30-24.
Okay.
Some of the things they did not capitalize on or establish last week are things we have seen them prove they are actually good at. Running the ball and blocking up front. We know they're capable of doing that. They have the quarterback, the running back, in the line to do it. We didn't see much involvement from Michael Pittman Jr. We know there's room to go there. And the linebackers played so uncharacteristically poor last week, too. We know they're capable of more. Still terrified of the secondary for what it's worth, which is why I'll give Malik Willis 24 points. But yeah, I also think they're better at stopping the run than they showed last year. Like everyone was healthy. Totally different story right now. But some of their better guys against the run should still be out there. I think it'll go that way. The Colts tend to prove me wrong at times, but I picked against them last week. I actually picked them within 1 point. I said they were going to lose 30-27, and they lost 29-27. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt at this one. I think they're going to right some of their wrongs from last week, and I'm going to say 30-24. All
right. Well, we're both right in that close range. By the way, both think that the Packers are going to cover the spread if those numbers turn out to be right. So maybe you can make a little money over with our friends at FanDuel. I will be live after the game on Sunday. Are you guys going to go live after the game?
Yep, we will be live. And since it's a away game, I don't travel. We will be even quicker after the game than normal.
Bang. All right. So come check us out Sunday on YouTube so you can stay locked on Packers and, of course, Locked On Colts.